But if I went to a Big Ten school that's sort of in the middle of the conference, as maybe I did, I'm sort of by my taxes subsidizing the bigger schools, better athlete. Is that a potential? I'm now making you a politician, really, or a political analyst. If
Yeah,
the case that
yeah.
middle schools are being forced to, through their taxes, incentivize, if not subsidize, the bigger, better schools that I do watch on TV, I'll admit. But I mean, where's the fairness in that?
I mean, right, right. I mean, that is a very fair point, and and one that's raised often by supporters and leaders of smaller schools. Yeah, there's clearly the unfairness is replete in this whole thing, especially as you look through the lens of how things are or aren't being taxed. The inconsistencies just kind of are all over the place. And so NIL collectives just seem to be another example of just that. There's no real logical, consistency with the way in which this enterprise is treated.
How about one more question on NILs, and then we'll get to the other. If I'm in a non-revenue generating sport, I'm are non-revenue generating sport athletes being helped by NIL collectives as much as those on the football and basketball teams?
No, I mean not in terms of the amount of money. I mean, arguably the opportunities for them are available, but there's just no incentive because again, their value, other than a few outliers who really are able to do endorsement deals,
Yeah.
but for the bulk of athletes who are getting paid, they're getting paid because of their value to the university's athletic department and its supporters. And the value generally is perceived to be in the sports that generate the money, football, men's basketball, a little bit women's basketball, some schools baseball, but it's football and men's basketball. And so, yes, so they're not precluded from participating in NIL deals, but they actually have to probably have the value as endorsers. And for the most part, getting your local, college golfer to, do an ad for a car dealership is not moving Ford trucks.
Yeah.
And honestly, getting the local football player is not moving Ford trucks either. It's only if the owner of the Ford dealership also happens to really care about the success of the college football team, where that seems to begin to make sense. So yes, no, they're not benefiting to the same extent. The argument some would make is that, in a free market system, they shouldn't necessarily benefit if we're being honest with,
Yeah.
who's doing what and where the value of each of these athletes lie. But yes, no, it's indisputable that all of this skews towards football and men's basketball.
So now let's talk about the other kind of C3 being created, as you've written about recently, including at the University of Tennessee. Uh, how many public universities have foundations, C3s, to which you can contribute to get the deduction to support the public university for various projects university wide. But athletic departments are doing their own now. They want their own. It might be easier to market or something like that. How many of those exist, and what's the?
At least, several dozen. Yes, most of the time, athletics has worked through the university foundation. Much like with the hospital system or any of the departments. Yes, there's a specific part. I mean, a lot of times athletics is the primary source of the revenue flow between university foundations. But for various reasons, flexibility, continuity, uh, there started to be at certain schools, larger schools with larger athletic departments than just dedicated, booster organizations. In some cases, several. You can look at schools where there's like three or four different nonprofits, separate nonprofits. I focused, in light of the new changes to the rules allowing schools to directly compensate athletes, which have just come on board a couple of months ago. Schools are now trying to come up with new architecture, new accounting architecture, financial architecture to do one of two things. One, to give them the ultimate flexibility in how they pay athletes now and in the future, and two, ways of raising revenue that they might not have been able to do before, at least into the university itself. And so, in some cases, that means building new 501(c)(3)s that they effectively have control over, but they're legally distinct. In some cases, it's converting existing C3s or replacing C3s with new for-profit entities. That's at the vanguard of the new kind of financial model of college sports, is just jettisoning the idea that this is nonprofit, because that then gives them even greater flexibility, including in which how they can raise money. As I'm sure you're aware, one of the big conversations of the last year is the introduction, the potential introduction of private equity money
Yeah.
into universities. Obviously, if you're a C3, there's limitations potentially on where you can raise money, how you can raise money, how you can sell equity into you. So in some cases, while the C3 still has a lot of value and they're being created as we speak for athletics departments, they might become a relic as people are looking to raise private equity capital, private debt money, if ever, and wouldn't shock me. We other foreign sources of money are sought to be raised, if it's through Qatari private wealth funds and so forth, or things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's we'll see what the future of this is, but right now there's definitely a number of 501(c)(3)s that are geared towards college athletic departments.
Hmm. You know, the for-profit entities are at least honest. If your objection to the C3ization of public university college athletics, uh, one cannot make that in the context of there might be other
That
objections.
is true. The one quibble I have is that they are also controlled by nonprofits, which are the universities. And I'm running to this. I do a lot of FOIAing, a lot of public records requesting, and you are seeing now universities putting their contracts with third-party vendors, including major contracts, apparel deals for athletics, multi-million dollar contracts. And they used to be hiding these in the nonprofits, in the C3s. Now, and I have waged public records battles, legal battles on to try to unearth some of these kind of documents. But now they're hiding them in these for-profits, which, yes, the for-profit is a for-profit, but if it's effectively controlled by a public university,
Yeah.
then this is like a game of hide the ball. An even more inscrutable game of hide the ball than what was already going on, which was pretty shady. So yes, I think you're right on a rhetorical level. It is more honest,
Mhm.
and I think people have begun to stop pretending that this is not just big business, but there's still a little bit of wanting to have it both ways too.
Yeah. Is the IRS going to try to rein in these other types of C3s, do you think, or might they have?
Based on history, no. Again, the IRS and Congress have never shown a concerted appetite to really challenging the way universities raise money. It's just with these NIL collectives, which, in light of the House v. NCAA settlement and the revenue sharing era of college athletes, the work of these collectives, if not the collectives themselves, have been digested into the universities or into the university foundations anyway. And so now yeah, the monkey's off their back. It's to the extent that they still exist. There's still a few left. There's got to be, are there even like just a couple that are applying for or have nonprofit status? But yeah, I mean, largely the era of the NIL collective is over in what we knew it.
But what about the other sort of C3 athletic department
Oh,
supporting?
that's still alive and well.
Yeah. Might even grow, although it would be as a way station towards the private equity.
Right, right. And there's, again, the one thing about college sports and higher education is there is no shortage of bureaucracy. So it does seem like everyone's solution to a problem is to create more legal structures and entities that whether or not this is the most efficient way, it certainly makes it harder and harder to track the flow of money. And so it serves that purpose, and arguably it allows for more maneuvering. But yes, that aspect of it is still very much alive and well.
Hmm. And then just the last question on that source, anything you want to add? Hypothetically, if there were a policy, what would a policy reform be? If the IRS is not going to do anything or can't or whatever, then you would look to Congress.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Form
candidly speaking, at this point, I think there was a point in time, certainly years ago, where tax reform or honesty about the taxing of college athletics would have maybe had a very profound effect on the way universities treat this, the way we decide how much, to dedicate towards this. The horse is so out of that barn now that I think in some ways the tax instrument is no longer as a practical thing. It still might be right to do. I think we want people to be honest about what is charitable.
Yeah,
So I think there's still value to it, but I don't think it would have a huge reform effect. I think there's so much money now that universities don't even care about paying, or don't care to the same extent about paying taxes, where that would have been a big differentiation back in the day. So, I mean, I speak from the perspective of a reporter. My policy reform suggestions would all be about improved transparency across the board, not allowing people to hide. The whole notion of a public university that utilizes public taxpayer money is that they need to show the work. They need to show where the money is going and how it's being expended. I think closing loopholes that allow public universities to do that through C3s or for profits, anything to sort of produce more sunlight there, I think is valuable for everyone. And similarly, you know, if 501(c)(3)s also have disclosure obligations that I think need to be upheld and and reaffirmed. And so, yeah, I think there's still value to be had there, and practical value to be gained there.
including C3s in the private
Absolutely.
context. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Unless you have anything to add, Daniel, I think we could end it there after thanking you for joining us today.
I know I'm grateful to be invited. Please keep in touch with me. I'm always interested. I've done a lot more stories about tax than I
Uh,
thought than I ever thought I would. I've read a lot more 990s than I ever thought I would in, writing about college athletics. But yes, I mean it is a world that lives on nonprofits and public instruments. So it's important.
Great. We'll
It's an important connection.
send you some green eye shades.
Absolutely. Thank you. I could use that.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks.